What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and on today's podcast, I am joined by Jeff Bell, who is director of the Sons of Ben, the movie documentary. Jeff, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, man. Thank you for joining us here. If you're joining us live on YouTube, please feel free, interact with us as we go along here. I have the chat feature up, chime in, thoughts, questions, comments. I'd be happy to relay that information. And with that, I think we're ready to jump right into the podcast. Any last questions, Jeff?
No, I'm waiting for your questions.
All right, sounds good. I'd like to welcome on Jeff Bell, who is a producer, director, and content creator. He's the director of the Sons of Ben documentary, which is the main Philadelphia Union supporters group. Jeff, welcome to Bros Talking Soccer. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for joining us here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Maybe where you're from?
Yeah, I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, which hopefully most of your listeners know is outside the Philadelphia area. Avid Philadelphia sports fan. And I ended up moving out to, once I graduated college, I ended up moving out to LA, got into production out there and music, and just started working my way up the ladder, became producer, director, started really kind of focusing on creating content. And I actually went to high school with Brian James, who is the one of the founders of Sons of Ben. And we talked at our high school reunion, because we've been out of touch for a while. And actually taking it back a little further, I was on Facebook one day, or one of my editors was like, yo, man, he's an MLS fan. And he's like, Philly got a team. I'm like, that's great. And he showed me this article. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Brian James. I hadn't talked to him for a few years at that point. And I caught up with him. I'm like, man, I'm really proud of what you did. I think that's amazing. It's so cool. And then we got to talking, I actually got to thinking about how they created a supporters group for a team that didn't exist to bring a franchise to the city. I was like, that's just an amazing story. And so at our high school reunion, I'm like, I want to do a documentary on Sons of Ben. He's like, bullshit. I'm like, nope, seriously. And then a few months later, I was there with the camera crew and we just started to shoot. And it took us 3 years, and it's been out for a little while now.
So I love it, and that leads perfectly into what I wanted to get into. So that addresses kind of how you got involved in the project and how you came to know about it. Timeline. So you said it took 3 years. You said your high school reunion. Can you just talk us through what year it was? So high school reunion that sort of kickstarted all this.
Yeah, we started shooting in February. No, it was March 17th of 2012, which is St. Patrick's Day. Chris's Jazz Cafe was our first shooting location, and we started shooting a bunch of interviews there, and that kind of put us on track. And the story evolved from just a bunch of guys that wanted a franchise in their city, and like I never had that's my first feature-length documentary. I've always done shorter form kind of content, and what I learned is, like, you don't dictate what the story is. The story will come out of your experience in the interviews. And it kind of took a pivot, and Chester became the heart of the story. So it took us 3 years to complete that. It was a long journey, a lot of bumps along the way, but I'm pretty proud of what we produced.
Yeah, and that's awesome. Again, the next thing I wanted to talk about is exactly that. It's, you're a director, you have this idea for the film, and then how does the process evolve? Is that standard? I know you said this was your first feature length project, but I mean, maybe even on your shorter documentaries or other projects that you've worked on, is that kind of standard where you come in with maybe a general outline and then you just let the interviews and the story sort of come about through that? Or was that something unique to this project? What was your experience with that?
Well, it was unique to me. I never experienced something like that before. Working in kind of shorter formats, you kind of know, you have an outline of what it's going to be. And if you're working 5 to 6 minutes or thereabouts, it's like, it's kind of, it'll work itself out. But like, I talked to a lot of, feature length documentary, filmmakers, and they kind of, said that, yeah, there will always be a little nugget there that may just throw things completely off in a direction you never anticipated. And it really did. And when I met Pat Tripley, she, one of the Chester residents, and her son William, who was unfortunately, murdered in Chester, that kind of put us on a path, a different direction where, it's hilarious that these guys did what they did. It's, so Philly, but they opened up, they started, understanding what Chester was about, and how was a community that could use a little help and support. And when we talked to Pat, she kind of opened the door, and that became the heart of what I feel like the heart of what the film is.
Yeah, and then the process of the actual interviews, I guess when you first have the idea to have this, I assume you work with the Sons of Ben, you come up with maybe a list of interview subjects. Are you working in conjunction with the Sons of Ben to put together questions? Do you have someone else, I don't know, maybe from your production side that's working on the questions? Is it you leading everything? Again, I don't have a ton of background on how like movies like this are made, so I'd be fascinated to know just how it actually works.
I mean, the members of the Sons of Ben that we worked with were very open in everything, every aspect of their lives. And you know, as you've seen the doc, especially Brian, he opened a lot with, especially with his relationship with his family and Mary and things like that. So we didn't work in conjunction with them. I did a lot of research in terms of the Sons of Ben, in terms of the city, the politics, the ownership group, going back and doing all of that research. And, I crafted a list of topics and questions I wanted to, that I thought would kind of control the narrative. And out of those responses, it kind of, again, you kind of have to pivot and, wow, what I thought was super interesting really wasn't that integral in the story. It was this part that happened too. And it's in the eye of the beholder in terms of like how you put the story together, because you could have done a doc on the same subject and would come out completely different. So in terms of that, we worked closely with the Sons of Ben, especially the members that were there at the beginning that wanted to tell their story. There are a few that declined, which is fine. It's I completely understand that. It's not an easy thing to open up your life to. And with what we had in the history and all of the stuff that was documented, that's how we came with the final product, which is this film.
Gotcha. Did you have, I know you said Pat obviously dictated a lot of the tone or direction that the film ultimately took. Did you have a favorite interview subject or story from, the film? Would it be Pat or would it be something else?
I mean, like the crew that I worked with, I've worked with them for a long period of time in a ton of different types of situations. And this was a situation that I'd never seen before. It was the most, it kind of hit me the hardest, this interview. Pat is such an amazing and strong woman. Like she's so inspirational. And we're sitting in her living room doing an interview with her. And I'm realizing I'm in tears, her telling us a story. And I turn around just to take a moment and I look at every one of my crew member, they're all in tears as well. And I've never seen that from them. And that all hit us, and that's a moment we all shared together that I really think was one of the most special moments I took from the film. Just to, again, it takes a lot for people to get in front of the camera and tell their story, and not everybody is open to that. But Pat not only sat in that chair and told her story, the way she told it, she's such a strong and inspiring woman, and it just hit us with a ton of emotion. And I have never cried during an interview. But that one hit me pretty hard.
Yeah, it was incredibly powerful. Do you remember or do you happen to know if there's anything that people can do? I believe she started a foundation in her son's honor. Do you know if people wanted to reach out or to help out in any ways? Do you know? If not, I can add it in post-production.
Yeah, I can get you a link to her foundation. I believe the union is working with them again this year. I keep in touch with her every once in a while. It's been maybe a little over a year since we've connected, but yeah, I mean, that's her foundation, the Will Tripley Youth Foundation, it's an amazing foundation and definitely is deserving of soccer fan support, especially if you're a Union fan. That's a charitable organization in Chester that really should, because it's, again, Chester has a strong history in basketball, and they got rid of all their soccer programs. And she's trying to bring that back and instill another sport, because every kid may not be great at basketball. And just exposing them to a sport where literally right around the corner is a professional stadium, it means a lot, because those kids can be like, wow, I can maybe play there one day. You know what I mean? So again, I could get you the link after the interview, but it'd be great too, because we donated some of the proceeds from our premiere party to her foundation.
Absolutely. So listeners, we'll get that link and make sure to add it into the video description, podcast show notes, and tweet it out as well. So if you want to help out, be sure to do that. And also, definitely check out the movie for more information about, everything we're talking about here. Jeff, is there anything from the film that you ultimately had to cut and were, extremely disappointed, whether it's an interview or a story that just didn't fit in with the tone of the film that you ultimately were disappointed to have to take out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of that. Like, this is 3 years of interviews, 3 years of footage that we shot, and there's a lot that didn't make the cut because, and there's, as a filmmaker, you kind of get attached to things, and you're attached to way you're like, no, the story, it's telling itself this way. But having a producer partner, Mike Diefenbach, to kind of talk objectively to me, like, it doesn't fit, and us kind of working through those things, it's like, all right, you kind of have to let things go for the betterment of the full film. So yeah, there's quite a bit of that. Nothing I really want to, I can mention specifically off the top of my head, like, damn, I wish that moment was there. I have to go revisit the footage again. Yeah, I'd have to think actually what some of those things are. We had kind of a history of soccer in the Philadelphia area with Bethlehem Steel and things like that, William Barr, that we focused on, and it just didn't fit the narrative. But I did want to give a little bit of a history of the strong kind of the strong presence soccer does have, the strong history soccer does have in the area.
Got it. Yeah. And so the film is about an hour and 15 minutes, and you said you had 3 hours of footage. How much footage?
We had 3 years of footage.
Oh, excuse me. That's what I meant. Yeah. No, I meant 3 years. How many hours? That was, I got my words mixed up in my head. How many hours of footage do you shoot over 3 years that ultimately got condensed down to an hour 15? Even if you don't know the exact number, like even ballpark, do you have any frame of reference?
Ooh, that's tough to say. Like, I never added up how much time that is, but if you factor in a few 500 gig to, I think, 1 terabyte hard drive, it's a lot of footage. So yeah.
I can imagine that. And so once you have all the footage that you've shot, you've met with your crew and you have a direction that you want to take with the editing. How does the editing process work? Is it just you editing? Are you showing it as you're going with someone else? Do you have someone helping you with the editing? How does the film start to come together once you've done all the filming?
Every filmmaker has their own approach. Some actually edit it themselves. For me, I like to have a kind of a collaborative effort, whether, starting, with our crew that's shooting it all the way into like the post-production phase of it. So I had an outline. I said, these are the kind of things that stick out for me. I'll go through every interview. We'll get it transcribed, and we pick out, certain sound bites that fit with how things are going. And then I had 2 editors, Jacob Bricka and Glenn Capultos, that worked on the project. Glenn came in after Jacob he had a few other projects he was working on. So basically, we go through everything and we start piecing things in, and we're like, this would be good here. Do you think we can get more from this person to kind of, to expand upon what they're talking about here? Or we go out and do kind of a shoot where that gathers a bunch of B-roll. So it's a collaborative effort that through this journey, you kind of fit pieces in to help expand upon the things you've stumbled upon that you didn't anticipate. And again, being my first feature film, it was something that, the story dictated to us what was going to be told, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so how much of it, either percentage or just timeline of, you have all these interviews that obviously dictates the narrative, then how much of it is then either going back into the field or just, I guess, immediately after the interview, shooting all that stuff that sort of supports, what that person is talking about? I think it's called B-roll. Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's B-roll. It's, sometimes there's a few reenactments that didn't come off as cheesy or whatever, but if like, hey, we handed out flyers, we go out and have people handing out flyers to reenact what they did in the past. So it's a lot of stuff. There's not like a percentage really that it's like, oh, we need to fill something here to kind of visually represent what they're talking about, because you don't want, if you have too much talking head, you're going to completely zone out and not even care. You need to have visuals, which is luckily Bill McGee, who was there from the beginning of the Sons, well, not the very beginning, but he captured quite a bit of archival footage for us that we were able to incorporate. But we also had to supplement that with kind of reenactments or shots of the stadium, shots of Chester, shots of landmarks in Philadelphia to kind of support what's being said, to show visual examples.
Got it. And the timeline of that happening is basically once you're done the interviews, once you have the outline, once you're starting to really piece it together, that's when you figure out either we have this footage or we need to go out and shoot it. It's not like you shoot it like immediately after an interview or something like that, right?
Sometimes you do.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you do. I mean, we had many kind of it was really, at the time I was living in Los Angeles, so it was hard to kind of schedule all of these things. So throughout the 3 years we shot in Los Angeles, we shot in Philly, we shot in New York. Those are the 3 locations we shot in. So there were like 3 separate times where we had a 2-week chunk of shooting. So the first one obviously is kind of building the skeleton of what the story is. The second one is kind of following up on certain aspects of the story you didn't realize were going to be important that they were. And the third is filling in kind of everything else that you needed to fill in. And I think we shot, our last shoot was a month before our Philadelphia premiere.
Wow.
And
so
we didn't have the sound, we didn't have the music locked until, I can't remember what day the premiere, it was June 15th, but it was 2 days before we got the final product, that the music was mixed. The music was, I mean, our composer was literally up 24 straight hours because he had other obligations, and he knew we had to deliver on that date because the premiere was June 15th. And so we literally picked it up 2 days beforehand from the mastering house. And yeah.
Wow, that's
so, we had all that work done. And granted, we showed the film in other film festivals, but it wasn't with the soundtrack that we have on there now. So yeah. And it wasn't color corrected at that point either, but we got the final product 2 days before the premiere.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. How much of it is different? So you have a first cut, and then I don't know how much of the film changes from the first time that you finish. All right, this is what we're envisioning, to all right, this is what June 15th, what we actually premiered. Was it pretty much the same, and it's just little corrections, or were there any major changes from that first time you kind of finished the initial cut?
So from our first film festival, it was pretty much done. Granted, we did have that week of shooting a month before that added a few extra things in there. But throughout the whole process, there were 23 versions of this film.
Wow.
So yeah, it was it's pretty intense. And like for me, it could always be better, and it was never finished. But at a certain point, you have to be like, all right, it's time to let this go and let people experience and take from it what they will. You know what I mean? So so that was hard to do, to finally be like, all right, we're done. The film is finished. We need to set it out to the public and share it with them.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have a Twitter question here from @SOB1408. They're wondering what happened to the footage that didn't make the DVD. Is there ever going to be a release with maybe deleted scenes or some of that footage that we talked about that ultimately didn't make it into the film? Any ideas on that?
Well, it's on a bunch of hard drives. Right now, it's not going anywhere. The problem with that is, we have distributors that sell the DVD. We have distributors that got us on Netflix, that got us on iTunes and Amazon and all that stuff. And we're still recouping production costs, to be honest. It hasn't made money, which I'm fine with. We're all very proud of what it is. In terms of a business justification, it's hard to justify that because that's going to be more time and money that specifically money we don't have to produce something like that. There was a lot of things. Actually, now I am remembering a few things, like because the Sons of Ben had input on what they wanted to see from the stadium. And we had a hilarious interview with Brad Utes about all of these crazy ideas of what could be in the stadium, and like a scarf making machine to like somehow distributing beer to seats. It was pretty funny, the things that you mentioned, which, you know, we would love to add on in some capacity. It's just we don't have the funds to kind of edit that, master it, and distribute it. So that's where it is. Could it happen? It could potentially happen. We could revisit it at some point and see if it's something we can produce. But as of right now, I don't see it happening.
All right, we need some more sales of the film. So SOB 1408, let's, you know, start promoting it and getting some more sales, and then maybe we get some deleted scenes and things like that. I wanted to switch gears a little bit. I know we're coming up on time for you, and just talk a little bit more broadly about some of the other things that you work on. You know, you direct and produce music videos, documentaries, series. Can you talk about the differences between each of those three projects and how, you know, I don't know, maybe creatively how you approach each of them?
Yeah, like I've been really lucky in my career. I love what I do, and I love producing, directing a variety of things, whether it be branded content, live broadcasts, you know, short form kind of things like that, or even developing for specific like media outlets and things like that. You know, each of them you have to approach differently. A live broadcast is completely different than a feature-length documentary. Live is live right here. There are many technical issues that I'm not a technical producer by any means, so I need to rely on my tech people. But you know, with branded content, you don't have as much freedom because you're dealing. You know, you have to work with the client. You want to deliver what they're asking for. You want them to be happy. So there may not be aligned visions on that. Music performances, I loved doing music performances. Those were an absolute blast. You know, each artist is different. They each have different ideas of how they want to be portrayed in their performance and things like that. So, you know, it's a lot of it's an understanding of like not everything is the same. You have to be flexible in what you do, and I think the most important thing, it sounds cliche, but just have fun doing what you do, and the end product will be great. You will be happy with the end product. So
there you go. Is there anything I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about here before I ask my final question?
No, but right now you're really hyping up your final question, and I'm excited to hear it. Or I'm scared. I can't tell.
All right. So the last question that we ask is all our guests, you know, what's the thing you're most excited about happening in your soccer world? So I don't know how much of a soccer fan you are. So if you have something that you're excited about happening in soccer, love to hear it. But I can also open it up more broadly and just ask, what's the thing you're most excited about happening in your world in general?
I'm not a diehard soccer fan, but I follow the Union. I've watched every game so far this season. I'm a Philadelphia sports fan, so like I know it starts with this. I'd love to see the Union win a playoff game, but I want them to win a championship. You know, so whether it's the U.S. Open Cup, actually MLS Cup, U.S. Open Cup, I want them to win all the possible championships that they could win. This is an exciting season, kind of surprising what's going on now. So that's my, like, I guess is the way you propose it. What is your dream? That's it. Like, you know, they're near and dear to my heart, not only because they're a Philadelphia team, but because I've worked, you know, in telling their story, and they were even the Union, like everybody with the Union was completely open in telling their story, especially like Nick Sakevich as well. So, you know, I want to see them do great, and I want to see this team succeed. I want to see it be a part. It's not the answer, but be a part of helping Chester, you know, helping it back up on its feet, helping it to prominence, and hopefully those things will come to fruition soon. I recently saw an article how they're revisiting the development that was part of the stadium, and I really hope that we can see that finally happen.
Yeah, that was a Philly.com article. I think they have 100 acres of land that they proposed for a redevelopment, and sent out, I think, 12 proposals or something like that. So it's exciting times happening there. I'm rocking my Sons of Ben shirt, so I am I'm excited about the team as well. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us here today. We have Jeff's all his social media, website, and everything linked in the video description, podcast show notes. But in case people are just listening, Jeff, where can people find you?
I'm right now in New York. I'm just kidding. No, jeffcbell.com. You can contact me there.
All right. So there you go. And Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Listeners, viewers, thank you for tuning in. Hope everybody has a great week. Christian, Matt, and I will be back with another podcast episode on Sunday. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Thanks.